Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the renewed calls for Keir Starmer to set out a Brexit position in opposition to the government, but also the way that some of the specifics are barking up the wrong tree. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So we have a new Brexit monitor in the form of Brexit Spotlight, which is initiated by the group Another Europe is Possible and intends to chronicle the impact of Brexit on the UK and engage in campaigns to reverse the mess. So Laura Parker, who's a member of the group, said that refusing to talk about Brexit was not a viable strategy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Brexit is going to be what defines the next generation of Britons in the same way that each of the world wars defined the generation that followed on from that. Such a momentous upheaval to a way of life cannot possibly just be done and left in the past. Absolutely agree. That being said, I have a serious problem when people misidentify a problem. See, if you don't recognise the real problem, you will not apply the correct solution. For example, she said that Hartlepool went to the Tories because it had been neglected for so long. Now, it's because the demographic had been changing over time from one that traditionally votes Labour to one that traditionally votes Conservative. It's not a case of, oh, Hartlepool used to, as if it's a person, used to be Labour, changed its mind, became Conservative. Hartlepool now is a very different town rather, to Hartlepool 30, 40 years ago. The council had already flipped from Labour to the Conservatives. This isn't new. This isn't even since Brexit. The council had already flipped. And where a council flips, the constituency seat is often not far behind. And whilst it's true to say that Hartlepool has been neglected, well, so have many other places that haven't flipped. And also, who have they been neglected by? The Conservatives. And here is where I need to sort of say something, because if you draw spurious conclusions just because it fits your bias more comfortably, just because, you have this worldview, and we all have our biases with our worldview. There's always things about our view that's not objectively true. Sometimes it may even be objectively false. But, if you need to be comfortable in your worldview, you won't really solve the problem. You might even make it worse. If you apply a solution that's not addressing the right problem, it may just do nothing. It may make things worse, but it won't make it better, except, of course, by sheer dumb luck. So let's take a look at the couple of Starmer statements on Brexit that are coming under fire. So he said that there's no scope for major renegotiation of the EU deal and that rejoining the EU isn't realistic. Now, you can hear both of those statements and think Starmer just wants to leave Brexit and pretend it isn't impacting everything. And that indeed would be boneheaded. See, where I criticise him for these statements is not in making the statements, because they are both true, as I shall argue, but because he doesn't continue to explain what he thinks we should do instead. Let's take the two statements. Rejoining the EU isn't realistic. Right now it isn't. It's where we need to move towards. I, for example, can always talk about moving to rejoin the EU. That's the end goal. As far as I'm concerned, and for everything I will say, that is the end goal. But it's quite right for a political leader not to. The reason being that Starmer has to make promises to the electorate for the term of office that he wants them to give him. So he needs to set out what he would intend to do in government between 2024 and 2029. It is counterproductive to go further than that. Even if privately he has plans. I'm not bound by parliaments. I can look at the long-term future. So then you'd say, so why can't we plan to rejoin the EU within that time frame? Well, there's a few reasons. The first is that the public mood, the reason Get Brexit Done was such a powerful slogan, it's not because it appealed to Brexit voters. It was meant to appeal to those who weren't supportive of Brexit, but did want it all to be over. The sort of people who, wearied by the whole thing, just thought, I don't want to leave the EU, but I'd rather do that, and can it all please be over? Boris Johnson wasn't just promising that we'd leave the EU. He was promising that he'd make all the Brexit hysteria go away. It would all go, get Brexit done. Get Brexit done. It's like, it's all going to be done and dusted and we can move on. That was the promise. Brexit was like torture. Just sign the confession and it will all stop, Johnson said. And so they signed, or put their tick in the Conservative box. There are a lot of people who do not realise that carrying on with Brexit will hurt more than reopening the Brexit wounds. Take a poll that was carried out earlier this year by YouGov. It showed a much higher proportion of people would have voted to remain in the EU than to leave had we had that other referendum. However, unlike some other polls that would just leave it at that, they went, oh, okay then, so would you want to rejoin the EU? Now on the question of that, now that we've left, should we rejoin? It was more evenly split. And herein lies the problem. Just because an increasing number of people will regret leaving the EU doesn't mean they all want to rejoin. Rejoining means more years of Brexit bollocks. And think of the campaigns. I, for one, have no confidence that the Rejoin campaign would be any more intelligently handled than the Remain campaign was. Case in point, these spurious conclusions that many of its would-be leaders draw from data, just to suit a narrative. To run an effective campaign, you have to face up to reality, even if it's only private. And this time, the Brexiteers would be able to say things that aren't lies. They'd be able to say, oh, well, we'd have to join the euro, we'd have to join Schengen, and they'd poke at that. Now, this may or may not be true. After all, there are a number of EU countries that are technically obligated to join the euro, but haven't. And you know what? They're not going to anytime soon. But still, nobody could, in all honesty, say that we would rejoin on the same terms as we left. See, the thing about the first Brexit referendum is that the Remain side actually knew what we were voting for. We were the only people who did. All the people who said they knew what they're voting for will leave. How could you know? Because what we ended up with was not what was talked about at the time. Remain, simple. What we were voting for was the EU membership and terms that we had at the time. We all knew what that was. This time, there would be negotiations. And we couldn't be certain how exactly they would go. And those negotiations would have to take place after the referendum. We'd know what the benefits of membership were, as well as the obligations, and I've no doubt that in time it will be an obvious decision to make. But right now, those little extras matter to a lot of people who still have a warped sense of sovereignty. Oh, and it is sometimes a good thing to have your own currency. Now, there are steps to take before rejoining, and we should focus on those. Then the second statement about no scope for major renegotiation of the deal. Well, this is just objectively true. There's nothing more to it than that. Major renegotiation would require willing on the part of the UK government, the EU Commission, and each individual EU member state. Right now, it wouldn't have the blessing of anyone. No one's interested in it. Even if Starmer formed a government and wanted to renegotiate it, it would not get any enthusiasm in the EU, and for two main reasons. One, trade deals done properly take years. The EU have enough on their plates with talks elsewhere. Two, the reason you reluctantly go through the time and effort of discussing trade deals, which are a major pain in the arse, even with a partner that's engaging, the reason you'll do it is to improve your market access. But the deal already gives the EU great market access with us. Why on earth would they want to renegotiate it and weaken the massive deal that they got? Besides, no deal that means we are outside the customs union and single market gets rid of the trade barriers that are blighting our businesses and stoking political tensions in Northern Ireland, to say nothing of Kent. So we need to rejoin the customs union and single market. Yes, but that's not renegotiating the deal. That's coming to an entirely different arrangement. And that's what we need to be doing. Ignore the deal's crap. Get something better. My criticism of Starmer in this regard isn't that he said rejoining the EU isn't realistic. For the time span of his campaign, it isn't. It also isn't in saying that we can't have a major renegotiation of the deal. We can't. The EU don't want to, and it doesn't solve our problems either. My criticism is that he isn't saying what we should do. He's surely not agreeing with Andy Burnham, who has just said we should seek the opportunities in Brexit, in a speech presumably intended to appeal to the Tories ahead of a summer of potential lockdown for the North West again. I mean, I'll say to him what I'll say to everyone who comes up with that crap. Name an opportunity in Brexit. Point to one. Because I find it offensive when businesses are saying that they face closure and having to let off staff, to be told that they just need to seek the opportunities in Brexit by people who cannot name a single one themselves. But that's not Starmer's position, surely, and it won't be Labour's position when he finally has to start talking about Brexit, assuming he does before the knives come out. But we do not know what Starmer intends to adopt as Labour's position. That's the problem. Now, I can understand the difficulty from his point of view. It's obvious. A currently popular Labour mayor has just announced that we should make peace with Brexit. That highlights the issue. That shouldn't be possible. For all the people who insist that it is an electoral necessity for Labour to stand against this extreme Tory Brexit, and you will not find me arguing with that, the issue is always it's threatening to split the party. But it is true to say that Brexit will define politics for years to come, decades even. The pandemic will go away at some point. It's already easing in all likelihood. We'll wait to see how the rest of the year goes out, but it's very likely easing. But Brexit will remain. It's certainly impossible to persuade people that Labour is a government in waiting without a plan for the country. And that plan cannot ignore Brexit. But in steering Labour towards a supported position, well, that can't be done without facing up to facts. We need to state what Labour should do. On the day after the election in 2024, what should a Labour government do? It cannot be to rejoin the EU, and it cannot be to engage in major renegotiations. Decide what we should do, and the doing should be a lot easier. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, and if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.